fastball is crushed.
You're listening to the New York Yankees Recaps podcast, where we're talking New York Yankees baseball all season long. Recaps of big games, the best home run calls, trades, rumors, and what's happening down on the farm. Every game, all season long.
Hello, everybody. So they say the toughest thing in sports isn't to win a championship, it's to repeat as champions. And the 1999 Yankees did just that. And I feel like that team kind of gets lost in the dynasty years because it was the middle championship of a three-peat, the third out of 4 in 5 years. So the Yankees were kind of the underdog in 96, the upstart champions. 97, they lose in the American League Division Series to the Indians. 98, they're out for revenge. They win 114 games in the regular season. They win 125 overall. They sweep the Padres, one of the greatest teams of all time. And then in 1999, it looks like they're going to have everyone back. It looks like the team is going to be almost identical to the 1998 season. And then, right after pitchers and catchers report, the Yankees make a trade for the 1998 and 1997 American League Cy Young winner, Roger Clemens. And I got to tell you, just from a personal level, at first I was not excited about that deal because David Wells was amazing. He was 18-4 with a 3.49 ERA. He had just thrown a perfect game in 1998. He was so big for the Yankees in the playoffs. He was such a likable character, just, here's what I've got, do your best to hit it. Just that swagger. Roger Clemens had some swagger too, but people forget that he got off to a slow start. The season opened up in Oakland, and he went 6 1/3 with 3 earned runs and 5 walks on opening day. Pitched much better his second time out, 7 2/3 with no earned runs. But then he got shelled by the Orioles at Yankee Stadium in his third start. He was still wearing number 12 at this point. 3 innings, 11 hits, 7 runs, 3 walks, 1 strikeout, and you're thinking maybe the Yankees made a mistake. Comes out the next time, 7 1/3, 1 earned run, dropping his ERA to 4.07. You're thinking, okay, he's got it together again. And then he gets shelled again in Arlington against the Rangers. 2 innings, 5 runs, no strikeouts. ERA's up to 5.47. And you're thinking, is this guy going to be inconsistent? Did we get him a year too late? Ultimately, he did have an okay season. He was 14-10 with a career worst 4.60 ERA. But he would come back to pitch better in the postseason, and we'll get to that later. As I said, the 99 team was mostly the same cast of characters as the great 1998 team. Now, they didn't have the same kind of numbers, but they were pretty good. Jorge Posada was the full-time catcher. Did not have a great year, batted just .245 with 12 home runs in 112 games in his age 27 season. Pedro Martinez, another guy who had a pretty good year, but not his best year in pinstripes, batted .263 with an 800 OPS, 28 home runs, 105 RBIs, just 2 years removed from his 44 home run season in 1997. Chuck Knobloch, in his second year with the Yankees, he was acquired before the 98 season to be their second baseman. Ultimately, over the course of his tenure with the Yankees, he developed the yips to where he couldn't throw the ball from second base to first base. But he had a very nice season in 1999. Batted .292 with a .393 on-base percentage and .848 OPS. That's actually third on the team behind Bernie Williams, who was at .971, and Derek Jeter, who had a career year at .989. But Chuck Knobloch was pretty good. 18 home runs, 68 RBIs, stole 28 bases. At shortstop, as I mentioned, Derek Jeter, in his age 25 season, he should have won the MVP. Batted .349 with a .438 on-base percentage, 24 home runs, 102 RBIs, scored 134 runs. Jeter was amazing that year. Amazing. His wins above replacement was actually 8.0. So he actually finished second in the league in WAR, but he finished sixth in the MVP voting. Pedro Martinez actually led the league in WAR. He was at 9.8, and he had an amazing pitching season for the ages, 23-4 with a 2.07 ERA, 313 strikeouts and 213 innings. He was deadly that year. That was peak Pedro, and the Yankees would run into him again in the playoffs. More on that later. The third baseman was Scott Brosius. He was, of course, coming off that amazing World Series MVP season in 1998. He didn't have quite as good a year in 1999, batted just .247 with a .307 on-base percentage, a .722 OPS, 17 home runs, 71 RBIs. He was very good defensively. In left field, Ricky Ledee and Shane Spencer. Actually, they traded off time. Ledee played in 88 games. Spencer played in 71 games. Ledee was a big prospect. He was actually being compared to guys like Don Mattingly and Darryl Strawberry in terms of his power, but that never materialized at the big league level. He had just 9 home runs, 40 RBIs, batted .276. Shane Spencer was coming off of that magical September in which he had 10 home runs and batted .373. Well, this year in 1999, he batted just .234 with 8 home runs and 20 RBIs in 205 at-bats, so the magic kind of left Shane Spencer. They also had Chad Curtis, who was kind of a role player in left field. He batted .262 with 5 home runs and 24 RBIs, but had a very nice World Series. In center field, Bernie Williams with one of his best years. In 158 games in his age 30 season, he batted .342 with 25 home runs and 115 RBIs, walked an even 100 times, .971 OPS, amazing defense. He was just tremendous, and this was the prime of his career. He had a great stretch run. If you haven't seen it yet, I have a video on my YouTube channel called Burn Baby Burn, the career of Bernie Williams, and it goes through the basically the amazing career that he had, and he was very underrated. In right field, Paul O'Neill batted .285 with 19 home runs, 110 RBIs. He was very consistent. This was his age 36 season. Stole 11 bases. If you didn't have the pleasure of watching Paul O'Neill play, he was just a very consistent player. He had a ton of just passion for the game. He would smash water coolers. He had a rifle for an arm. He would just let that ball fly, and he had a just sniper rifle for an arm. He could throw guys out from the right field corner at third base, threw guys out at home all the time. Just an amazing right fielder. He knew right field very well. At DH, Chili Davis, who was signed before the 1998 season, didn't get to play much because of an injury. This was his age 39 season. He batted .269 with 19 home runs and 78 RBIs. He was a switch hitter. I remember everybody wore shirts that said Chili Dog. He was a good clubhouse guy, and he got T-shirts for everybody. On the bench, backup catcher was Joe Girardi. He played in just 65 games, batted .239 with 2 home runs and 27 RBIs. A 60 OPS plus, so not much of an offensive force. Luis Sojo, who was quite the super utility guy for the Yanks. He was solid on defense. He got a lot of clutch hits. Batted .252 with 2 home runs and 16 RBIs. Jim Leyritz, who didn't hit any home runs during the season. He batted .227 with no home runs, 5 RBIs, but did hit a big home run in the World Series. And Darryl Strawberry, coming back from his cancer surgery, .327 average in 66 plate appearances with 3 home runs and 6 RBIs. The pitching staff was mostly led by Orlando Hernandez. He was 17-9 with a 4.12 ERA, pitched 214 innings. He was in his first full season out of Cuba. It was his age 33 season, or so we thought. No one really knows how old Orlando Hernandez is or was. He could have been 57 years old. Who knows? There was all this weird controversy over his birth certificate. Nobody really knows how old he was. David Cone pitched a perfect game on July 18th. That was one of the few big moments in Yankees history that I was alive for that I missed. I was at my own baseball tournament, and I didn't find out till after the game, but that's a classic that I have gotten to see many, many times on the Yes Network and on YouTube. David Cone, in his age 36 season, was 12-9 with a 3.44 ERA in 31 starts, 193 innings, 177 strikeouts. Andy Pettitte, in his age 27 season, he actually was kind of not great that year. He was 14-11 with a 4.70 ERA. There were talks that he might be traded to the Phillies at one point during that season. The number 4 man in the rotation, Roger Clemens, 4.60 ERA in 30 starts, 187 and 2/3 innings, 163 strikeouts, 14-10 record. Again, not the best season for Roger Clemens. A 102 ERA plus. So he was about league average. So the league average for ERA that year was about 4.55. This was the height of the steroid era. So guys were smashing home runs and scoring runs. And Roger Clemens, as we all know, had some issues with that. I don't know if he took steroids that year, but if he did, they didn't really work that well. And the number 5 man in the rotation was Hideki Irabu in his age 30 season. 11-7 with a 4.84 ERA in 32 games, 27 games started. Irabu was interesting because, he was advertised as being the Nolan Ryan of Japan, the hardest thrower in Japan. And he threw pretty hard. He was 94, 95, decent splitter. But his fastball was very straight, and so he gave up a lot of home runs. Gave up 26 home runs that year. Also, he wasn't in shape. He didn't really care too much. He used to smoke cigarettes while he was throwing his bullpen. And he would wear down at the end of the season. But when he was on in the first couple months of the season, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball in both 98 and 99. So he had potential. He just, couldn't last through the season. In Japan, you pitch once per week, and a lot has been made of that over the last several years with Daisuke Matsuzaka and Masahiro Tanaka, Yu Darvish, guys coming over from Japan and not really having the success that they had in Japan. You throw a ton in Japan, so the guys, their arms break down. Tanaka had the partially torn UCL. Yu Darvish had a full tear of his UCL, I believe. And Irabu would just wear down, and he didn't last long in the big leagues. Matsuzaka, he also had arm issues and didn't last. So a lot of his issues were just that he was a little guy. He was, I think, 5'9", 5'10", and so guys that are that small don't generally last that long in the big leagues anyway. It's just too much torque you got to put on your arm. Bullpen was pretty good. Ramiro Mendoza, Jason Grimsley, Mike Stanton, Jeff Nelson, and of course the great Mariano Rivera, who in his age 29 season pitched 69 innings, had a 1.83 ERA, 45 saves. It seems like every year Mariano Rivera had like 1 week that he just wouldn't pitch well. He would give up, he would blow 2 or 3 saves a year, and they would all be in the same week. And that was no different in 1999. He had a 2.57 ERA plus, so he was 157% better than the average pitcher. And if you look at a chart of Mariano Rivera versus other pitchers, like when it comes to career ERA plus, he's just in a class by himself. He was so good for so long that Mariano Rivera, in my opinion, is the greatest pitcher. Definitely the greatest relief pitcher of all time, but in my opinion, he's the greatest pitcher of all time. So the Yankees fall back a bit from their 1998 record. They go 98-64. They win the East. They take on the Texas Rangers in the American League Division Series. Texas Rangers that year had an amazing roster. At catcher, they had a prime Ivan Rodriguez, batted .332 with 35 home runs. 27 years old, one of the best arms in the history of Major League Baseball. Lee Stevens at first base, 24 home runs. Mark McLemore at second base. Royce Clayton at shortstop. Todd Zeile with 24 home runs at third base. Rusty Greer in left field, he had 20 homers. Juan Gonzalez was their right fielder. He had 39 home runs. And Rafael Palmeiro of the I Never Took Steroids Ever batted .324 with 47 home runs and 148 RBIs in his age 34 season. That screams steroids. He had a 1.050 OPS, a 160 OPS plus. This was a deadly lineup. They also had Roberto Kelly. You might remember that Roberto Kelly was the guy that the Yankees traded for Paul O'Neill after the 1992 season. the Rangers pitching was Rick Helling, Aaron Seeley, John Burkett, and Mike Morgan, and Mark Clark. So nobody really great. Their lowest ERA on the starting staff was 4.79. So you just thought that the Yankees were going to obliterate that pitching staff. They actually didn't. The Yankees won Game 1 8-0, but they won Game 2 just 3-1, and Game 3 3-0. So the Rangers scored just one run in the 3 games. That amazing offense scored one run in the 3 games. And in Game 1, Orlando Hernandez dominated. Game 2 was Andy Pettitte. And Game 3 was Roger Clemens, who sort of earned his Yankee stripes in his first postseason appearance with the Yankees. 7 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 2 walks, just 2 strikeouts. Faced just 26 batters. So Roger Clemens was terrific in that series. The Yankees move on to face the Boston Red Sox in the ALCS, and they win that series 4-1. The only game they lost, though, was when Roger Clemens was pummeled in Game 3 by the Red Sox against Pedro Martinez. Everybody was hyping this up. You know, Clemens, the old guard of the Red Sox, versus Pedro, the new guard of the Red Sox. And Pedro won the battle, but the Yankees won the war, winning the series 4-1. So the Yankees move on to the World Series, and they face the Atlanta Braves, who they had beaten in one of the best series of all time in '96. Of course, they had that great pitching staff, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz. But the Yankees won the series, and they didn't just win the series, they swept the series. So Game 1, the Yankees win 4-1. Orlando Hernandez defeated Greg Maddux. The Braves actually jumped up 1-0 in the 4th inning on a home run by Chipper Jones, but the Yankees scored 4 runs in the top of the 8th inning and won 4-1 on just 6 hits. The Braves had just 2 hits. Great performance by Orlando Hernandez. Went 7 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. Jeff Nelson came in, pitched a third of an inning. Mike Stanton came in, pitched a third of an inning. And then Mariano Rivera picked up his 5th save of the postseason, pitching an inning and a third, 1 hit, 1 walk, no runs, 1 strikeout. In Game 2, Kevin Millwood was on the hill for the Atlanta Braves, pitched 2 innings, gave up 8 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned. David Cone was on the hill for the Yankees, went 7 innings, again, 1 hit, no runs, 5 walks, 4 strikeouts. So in the first 2 games of the series, the Yankees starters went 14 innings combined and gave up just 2 hits combined. The Yankees did not hit any home runs. They actually scored 3 runs in the first, 2 in the third, 1 in the 4th, and 1 in the 5th to take a 7-0 lead. And then the Braves scored 2 runs in the bottom of the 9th off of Ramiro Mendoza before Jeff Nelson came in to close it out. And the Yankees went up 2-0 in the series. Much as with the 96 series, Game 3 was the best game of this series. The Yankees won 6-5 in 10 innings. The game was started by Andy Pettitte for the Yankees, and he got shellacked, pitching 3 2/3 innings, giving up 10 hits and 5 runs. And Tom Glavine started for the Atlanta Braves, going 7 innings, giving up 7 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned, no walks, of course, 3 strikeouts. The big story was that Chad Curtis hit 2 home runs, one off of Tom Glavine in the 5th inning, and then a walk-off home run off of Mike Remlinger in the 10th inning. Tino Martinez also hit a home run, and so did Chuck Knobloch. And the Yankees took a 3-0 series lead. Now, this was back in the day where no team had ever come back from a 3-0 deficit. Of course, that has changed. It has happened one time now, unfortunately, in 2004 when the Red Sox came back on the Yankees. But you felt after 3 games that this was over. And you had Roger Clemens going in Game 4. It worked out perfectly. You know, he was acquired before the season to be the Yankees' shutdown guy in the postseason, and he's pitching Game 4 against the Braves, and he dominated 7 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, wins his first World Series. Overall, he was 2-1 with a 3.24 ERA in the postseason. So after not a great regular season, he really lived up to the hype in the postseason, even though he didn't get a ton of strikeout numbers. Going for the Braves was John Smoltz. He went 7 innings, gave up 3 runs, struck out 11. Jim Leyritz didn't hit any home runs all season, but he was kind of known as a guy who would hit a ton of home runs in the playoffs. He hit that big home run in the 95 ALDS to win it for the Yankees in Game 2 at Yankee Stadium. Yankees lost that series, but, Jim Leyritz has that moment in history. And then in 1998, he homered in 3 straight games in the NLCS for the Padres. And the Yankees reacquired him in 1999, and he hit a home run off of Terry Mulholland after the game was pretty much already over in the 8th inning to give the Yankees a 4-1 lead. A lead that would be held by the eventual World Series MVP, Mariano Rivera, just another accolade in his growing career that would ultimately lead to him being the first ever unanimous Hall of Fame inductee. I'll tell you what, 99 kind of doesn't get the attention it deserves. As I mentioned, it was the middle championship of 3. And my next podcast, I'll talk about the third of the three-peat. I'll talk about the 2000 series in which they defeated the Mets in the Subway Series. But that 99 team was very, very good. It was like they just coasted through the regular season. And then once the playoffs started, they were 11-1. 11-1 in the postseason. So that was a very, very good team. But hope everybody is staying safe out there. No word yet on when the season will start. It looks like we're going to be delayed at least a couple months. So, maybe June, maybe July. We'll see. They're talking about going to a neutral site for the postseason, maybe playing in some domed games. That'll be odd. It'll be weird not having playoff games in Yankee Stadium. So I don't know how that's all going to work out, but it's going to be a season for the ages if and when it does get underway. So thanks for joining. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.